Idealism and the concept of pure unity. The formal glimpses of the nearest of the known fact that shown the thinkers of Upanishads and the path they had been following, the path of realism, had logically led them to unsatisfying conclusion. The unity for which they had been searching, as if there was something outside or apart from themselves, could never be reached, for there still remains the stubborn dualism of self and non self. However deeply the two might be set into pantheistic unity which should embrace them both in external graph. Epistemological idealism must henceforth the path traveled in order to reach the goal of the absolute unity. It is a wonderful discovery, an intuition of which had flashed out here and there, but which is forced upon them by the adoption of the limit which they have reached along the line of epistemological realism. The final unity which not would not then he found outside of the self, but in it the truth of self is a unity that they had been looking for all along. For therein all these things became the one, and not only in it, or in that is in one's own consciousness. Two things exist. As far verily as the world space extends, so far extends the space within the heart. Within it indeed was contained both heaven and earth, both fire and wind, both sun and moon, lightning and stars, both what are possessed here and what one does not possess. Everything here is contained within. The realistic pantheism had been changed into epistemological idealism. All existence is for and in the self. The whole world is Brahma, and the soul is mind. Within the heart, he is the world protector. He is the world sovereign. He is the Lord of all. He is myself, Kaushya. I am Brahma. As the world ground, the unity of being which was being surge of realistic outstanding of self and which was it was being approached seemed to be resided pay back into the illusionary and into the unknowable, the none other than the self, which is illusion of cognition of the reason that is the subject of consciousness, and it does not become an object. Here is unseen seer, the unhear hear, the unthought thinker, the ununderstood understander. He who could not see the sheer of seeing, you could not hear the hear of hearing, you could not think of thinkers thinking, you could not understand the understander of understanding. Whether within, whether with would one some understand him or whom one understand is all. Lo, wherewith should be understand the understander. The world which has smile of birds supports the tree and the roofs has been realistically explained. The support on which the unforeseen sight was Atman the self, because it is I as self and also part of it. This world is none other than myself. He who has found and has awakened the soul, the world is this indeed, and the world itself. One should reverence the thought, I am the world all. I am one, I am alone, the world's whole world. Now, when he imagines I am the world all, the highest world, the really in the form of beyond desires, free of evil and without fear. Rather, instead of being identified with my consciousness, the world of senses is the product of the constructive imagination, as is evident in sleep. When one himself tears it apart, himself builds it up, and dreams of the own brightness by its own light. There are no chariot there, no span, no road, but the project from himself chariot spans roads. There is no blesses, there is no pleasure, no delights, but the projects from himself blesses, pleasures, delights. There are no tanks there, no lotus pole, no stream, but the project from himself tanks, project from himself lotus pools and streams, for he is a creator in the state of sleep, going aloft and allow a God he makes many form for himself. Such a theory is distinctly idealistic and metaphysics. Here, then, a source of the manifold diversity which had seemed to contradict the pure unity of being. It is all the thought product of large and real self, apart from whom neither it is nor I have any existence whatever. He one knows, let me smell this, let me utter this, let me hear this, let me think of this. The self, the ego does not perform this activity. Assuredly, the soul, the one soul is called the immortal leader. As perceived thinker, goer, evacuator, begetter, doer, speaker, taster, smeller, seer, hearer, and he touches all the pervaded has entered the body. The real illusion is not strictly the trick of others, the great imagination, but my own persistence is a vain belief that I and the world exist apart from or on the sense of other than the pure in and differences unity of the self, or accordance to the theory of realistic pathism and one's world of all Brahma. Either the case, knowledge of the truth banishes the illusion and restores the identity which once temporarily surrendered by ignorance. Whoever does know I am Brahma becomes this all. Even the gods have not power to prevent this because thus they become the self. The knowledge is the real nature of Brahma in general efforts and assimilation of knower of it. Verily, Brahma is fearless. He who knows is becomes the fearless Brahma. He verily who knows the supreme Brahma becomes the Brahma. He who recognizes the shadowless bodies and bodiless, pure, imperceptible, arrives the impossible itself. He knowing all becomes the all. The Brahma knowers became mergers into Brahma. In Atma theory, the great design is union with Atma, the inner and real unitary self, who is the truth, and but know it is could realize it as a self which free and evil, ageless, deathless, sorrowless, hungerless, thirstless, and the desire is real. Those conception is real. Maitri. The Brahma theory is also complete unqualified unity that is the ideal, an ocean, a sheer alone without the duality, become he whose world is Brahma. He is the man's highest path, is the highest bliss for the very punum in the area of pleasure. There is no pleasure in small, only a punum is pleasure. The path, however, from the troubled consciousness with the limitation, sorrows and pain, the state of unalloyed beatitude and unbounded bliss. A sharpened edge of the razor hard to transverse difficult path, and it's a poet declare. Verily, there are two conditions in the persons, the condition which is the world and the condition being the other world. There are intermediate third conditions, namely that being in sleep, going into, and a fish goes over the other side of the river and back. One may have actual experience of the reality of the bliss is contract with which is walking life is but a bad dream. It's noteworthy how the dominant realistic pathism of the Upanyas is frequently overwritten by the idealistic tendency, which rejects the worlds of waking subconsciousness in the real world, and which adopts the state of dreamless sleep and the vacuous meditation as grasping the absolute unity and reality. So, Pachapati described the real self after futile attempts to satisfy Indra with a lower conception, such as a person who is seen in the eye and the reflected image in a vessel of water, as follows: He who moves about happy in dream, he is a self, and but Indra perceived the failure on Prajapati part to instruct him about self, which is free from evil and from sorrow. For even the dreams one has most unpleasant experience, such as being stuck and cut into pieces. Admitting the inadequacy of the state of dreaming sleep as furnishing the cognition of supreme bliss self, Prajapati gives it as his final instruction that when one is sound asleep, composed, serene, and knows no dream, that is the self. But Indra found no satisfaction in such a self, for the condition a man does not really know himself. So he said that this is not does to know other things. The objective is not fairly met by Prajapati, really pleasant and pain and due to self connections with the body. But the highest condition is when the sleep. The serene one arising out of his body no longer thinks of the appendage of the body, but goes around laughing, sporting, talking delight with women and chariot and relatives. For the explanation in a replace with the state of dreaming sleep, which however pleasant it may be at time, had nevertheless as content by Prajapati himself as fault because it was a conscious condition and thereby liable to all the vicissitudes of walking consciousness. In contrast to the unsatisfactory conclusion of the dialogue, Vajnavalkya is in Brihad. They gave the Maitri who, like Indra, has perplexed for similar instruction that the highest stage of oneself is unconscious. More philosophical explanation that's why it's not a unconscious, where there is a duality as to where there one sees another, there is a smell another, there may taste other, there is a speaks to another, but where everything has become just one own self, when whereby and then whereby and to whom would one speak, then every whereby who would not hear, when whereby and who would not think he one thing, and then whereby and whom would one touch, thereby and who would one understand. Knowledge is only a second. Consciousness means consciousness of the object, but the consciousness where all the things became in the abound ocean like purity, unity of the real self, and duality of limitation and subject objective of relation obligation. It is thereby and consciousness of impossibility. The conception of the pure unity of being and the blissness union of self was not clearly defined and constantly held. A Maitri suggests a reason now where knowledge is a dual nature, subjective, objective, where indeed one hears, one sees, one smells, one tastes, also nature touches, and the soul knows everything. When the knowledge is not the dual nature, being devoid of action, cause and everything unspeakable, incomplete, indescribable, and that is, it is possible to say it is strictly conceivable, whereby the word of towards turn back together when the minds not having attended the bliss of Brahma. It may only be affirmated and approximately conceived. Thus, this is thus the recognized highest indescribable happiness. There are consequently vacillation and indefinition in the statements regarding the Prajapati, when pressed to justify his unconsciousness, fell back upon the notion of pleasant dreams. The Taittiriya Upanyas were by arithmetic computation that perfect bliss is declared equal to oscillation bliss of the most favored man on earth. States in closing that aspirant having reached the self which contains a bliss goes up and down the world, eating that he will and assuming that forms he will, and sits singing the song of universal unity, which begins with "Oh wonderful, oh wonderful, oh wonderful." The limitation of non self certainty would be absent in the plenary bliss, where one sees nothing else, hears nothing else, understands nothing else. It is plenum, but where one sees something else, where that is small, verily it's a plenum, the same as pleasure. There is no pleasure in the small, only a plenum is a pleasure. And atoms, contrary to the prevailing concepts and conditions of union, which the self to make qualified provision of sense activity of sort of paradox which more intelligence in the madhyam dina, that is an jnana recension, verily while he does not there sees he see verily seeing, though he does not see what is to be seen, but there is no consumption of seeing of seer. Because of this imperishability, he it is not, however, a second thing other than himself and separate that may see. Similarly, he continues to smell, continues to taste, continues to speak, hear, think, touch, and know through not the second thing other than himself separate. The sensual conception of the bliss is and pictured in Brihad, according to which the condition of union with the self is consciousness, but void of content either subjectively or objectively referred than mere state of bliss. As a man where the emperor's beloved wife knows nothing within and without, so the person when he embraces an intelligent soul knows nothing within and without. The mantra where the bliss is found is a deep sleep as such. The true conception of bliss is of union itself, then the world seems to be the strictly unconscious condition. But with the attempt to conceive of that condition, which indeed was asserted to be inconvincible, and recourse it had sensual experiences and to balmy sleep. Strictly, it is a state of dreamless sleep which is taken typifying the attending of the realm, there whereby they say him he sleeps and for he has gone to zone. This is the true both of Brahma story and the Atma theory. So just as those who do not know the spot might go ever hit the treasure of gold again and again, but not found it. Even so, all the creatures were go to the Brahma world in deep sleep day by day, but do not find it. Doctrine allude to Prasanna. Now the strange one, the soul in sleep, who rise up upon the body, reaches the highest light and appears with his own form. He is the soul, that is the immortal and the fearless. This is the Brahma, the name, and verily Brahma is the real, day by day, verily. He who knows he goes to the heavenly world. The pleasant dreams of sleep rather than the hampered walking consciousness were according to some of the passage which have quoted tentatively accepted as an characteristics of unlimited self, but because of the fact of unpleasant dream they were subjected to favor of bliss of dreamless sleep, where even a duality of subject or objects that is foreign to the essential nature of the unity self is metal away. But even the condition of profound sleep from which one wakes refreshed and back and however into the diversity into the limitation of the walk consciousness seem to near the unreality of illusionary egohood which is conscious of falseness appear objects and subjects in the Mandukya, therefore, there is a put above the waking consciousness and dreaming sleep and dreamless sleep and fourth stage. Not inward cognitive, not outward cognitive, but both wise cognitive, not cognitive mass, not cognitive, not non-cognitive unseen, which there can be no dealing, ungraspable, which no distinctive of the assurance of which the state of being one with the self, the Manan. Another later of Upanyas, the Maitri adopt the same fold, condition of all existence and denomination of the fourth and highest condition of Turiya. Not only the sleep and to supposititious condition beyond the profound slumber does one reach the unity of the self. He does it so in than the consummation of unification for the diversity of illusoriness of the self knowledge and separateness are overcome. When the self comes to weakness and confusioness of the mind as it where they breathe greater around him. He takes himself through particles of energy and descended into the heart. Then the person in the eye turns away back, the one becomes non knowing the forms. He is becoming the one. They say he does not see. He is becoming the one. They say he does not smell. He is becoming the one. They say he does not taste. He is becoming the one. They say he does not speak. He becoming the one. They say he does not hear. He becoming the one. They say he does not think. He becoming the one. They say he does not touch. He is becoming the one. They say he does not know. He becoming one intelligent. Similarly, in Chant 6. Yeah. Death is only the process of absorption into real, into the self. On of the dying person, he said, his voice goes into his mind, and his mind into the breath, and his breath into the heat into the highest divinity. That which is the finest essence of the whole world has in the soul. That is reality, that is Atman, that is art of Sveta Kitu. And the might he added only ignorance and persistence in the thought of separate self keeps on from actual being. The death is truly the losing of the cord of the heart which bind ones to illusion life and the thought of the separate self existence. The gone are the 15 parts according to the station, even all the sense organs and the corresponding divinities, one's work and the soul that consist of understanding all became unified and supremely imperishable. It is evident that the pure unity of the self, that really existence, union which is specified in the sleep is death. In unconscious because of void of all limitation or distinction whatsoever, being the person all pervading or without any marks whatsoever, and wherein even the possible distinction that this is a loss which represent a condition which seem to abhorred to Indra, which is Prajapati, did not succeed in justifying. It's impossible just because the duality and limitation of the subject object relations are impossible. That is a planetary unity. That's for the empirical point of view, which regards a walking consciousness in the real. The man does in the way go straight to destruction. But to the philosopher who understand the falsity of an ordinarily standard and illustrate the ego to which men found cling, the loss of unity, individuality of real self that is unlimited to the supreme achievement. This doctrine to set forth and parables from the nature thus that or two section of Chandogya. As the bees, my dear, prepare honey by collecting the essence of different trees and reducing the essence to this unity, as they are able to discriminate. I am the sense of this tree, I am the essence of this tree, and so indeed, my dear, all creatures here, thereby we reach the being. No, none. We have reached being. The rivers, my dear, the my flow, the eastern towards the east, the western towards the west, they go just from the ocean to the ocean. They became the ocean itself, as they know not. I am the one. I am the one. Even so, indeed, my dear, all creatures here thought they had come forth of being. No, not we had come forth from beings. It is a very consciousness of this of I which is limited, the separation one of the unlimited, the individuality, the self-consciousness must be lost ere in the reach of infinite real, as these flowing rivers or that tend towards the ocean, and reaching the oceans disappear, the name and from was destroyed, and it is became simple, the ocean. Even so there a spectator. The 16 parts that tend towards the person on reaching the person disappear. This name and the form are destroyed, and it is called simply the person. Thus, the ultimate unity of reality, which had surged through our Upanyas and finally reached on the epistemological basis of common sense of realism, which views all things really extending just they were seen to exist, and continuation of cosmologies of Rig Veda and Upanyas started by posting various primeval entities, out of which various procedures of manifold of world are produced and sacrificed, whereby rain and other forces of nature are controlled. This postulate as the one world producer and controller. The conception of the Brahma granted devotion into monism and simultaneously speculation regarding the nature of entity, and which is oneself an objective or unities. The self-object jointly developed concept of Atma, the self, the greater self. After the analogy of individual self, the Atma theory and the Brahma theory became merged together in absolute pantheism. An apparent conflict between many and the one lead to distinction between phenomena and noumenon. Though two are further speculation turned out to be a respective one illusionary world and unknowable reality. The theory of epithological idealism, which had intuited previously an occasion which had been up to by a failure of realism, and they developed a manifold world as seen to be construction of imagination, and the supreme entity has found is one own self from which the ego is falsely sundered by the life and walking consciousness. The pure entity which reals or actually offered to sleep, and the death is bliss state of consciousness to which individual and all descriptions are overcome. As far as chiefly metaphysics doctrine of Upanyas has treated, there remains important of ethical, practical corollaries to the main proposition behind laid down, and these will be considered as the following chapters.